My name is Chloe, and I was 32 when my twins were born 8 weeks early, 2 days before my brother's wedding. I thought the worst message I would get that weekend would be someone asking whether the babies were okay. Instead, the morning after the wedding, my new sister-in-law sent me a message asking me to pay for the 2 meals my husband and I had missed. At the bottom, she wrote, "I understand why you couldn't come, but Grant could have. There was no reason for both plates to go to waste." My brother Miles had been planning his wedding for almost a year. He and Tessa wanted a big Saturday reception with nearly 100 guests, and I had been excited for them. Grant and I had already bought our clothes, booked a hotel near the venue, and chosen a wedding gift. Until that week, I fully expected to be there. Then on Thursday morning, everything changed. I was only 32 weeks pregnant when I woke up with pain that did not feel normal. Grant drove me to the hospital, and within a few hours the doctors told us the twins were coming. Nothing about that day felt real. One minute, I was thinking about whether I had packed the right shoes for the wedding. The next, I was being told our babies would be arriving much earlier than anyone had planned. They were born that afternoon. They were tiny, stable, and immediately taken to the neonatal unit for monitoring and support. I was exhausted, sore, scared, and trying to understand words I had never expected to hear that week. Grant barely left my side. That evening, I called Miles. I started apologizing before he even finished saying hello. "I'm so sorry," I told him. "I don't think we can make Saturday." He sounded shocked that I was even thinking about it. "Chloe, stop, forget the wedding. I know you've paid for everything. I do not care about the plates." That sentence stayed with me later. He said, "Stay with your babies. We'll celebrate when everyone is home." I cried after we hung up, partly because I was overwhelmed and partly because I was relieved. Miles understood. I assumed Tessa did too. She sent me a message that night saying, "I hope the babies are okay." I replied with a photo of two tiny hands resting beside each other. She sent back a heart. That was all. Saturday came while I was still in the hospital. Grant and I watched a few short videos from the wedding when relatives sent them. Miles looked happy. Tessa looked beautiful. I was genuinely glad for them. I even asked Grant if he felt bad about missing it. He looked at me like I had lost my mind. "Our children are here," he said. "I'm not leaving you to go eat chicken at a wedding." I laughed for the first time in 2 days. We sent Miles and Tessa a voice message congratulating them. We told them we loved them and would celebrate properly later. The next morning, I woke up early because a nurse had come in to check on me. I picked up my phone and saw a message from Tessa. At first, I thought she was going to send wedding photos. Instead, she wrote, "Hey Chloe, I know yesterday was obviously complicated, but we had to pay for every confirmed guest. Since you and Grant both didn't come, we were charged for 2 meals that went unused. It was $180 total. Could you send that over when you get a chance?" I read it twice. Then I read it a third time. I honestly thought I had misunderstood. I typed, "Are you asking me to reimburse you for missing the wedding?" She replied almost immediately, "I'm not trying to be rude. Weddings are expensive. I understand why you couldn't come, but Grant could have. There was no reason for both plates to go to waste." I looked over at Grant. He was asleep in a chair beside the window, with his jacket folded under his head. Our babies were 2 floors away. And my new sister-in-law was explaining that my husband should have left us because someone had paid for his dinner. I did not answer right away. That was probably the smartest thing I did that morning. I put the phone down and waited until Grant woke up. Then I handed it to him. He read the messages silently. His face changed. "She sent this to you here." I nodded. He started typing. I stopped him. "Wait." There was only one thing I wanted to know. I picked up my phone and wrote, "Does Miles know you're asking me for this?" Tessa replied, "This doesn't need to involve Miles. I'm asking you directly, woman to woman." That answer told me everything. If she really believed the request was normal, there would have been no reason to keep my brother out of it. So I took one screenshot. I sent it to Miles. Under it I wrote, "Is this actually what you want me worrying about right now?" He called within 2 minutes. I answered quietly because I was still sharing a recovery room. "What is this?" he asked. "You tell me." I had no idea. He sounded furious, but I was too tired to feel satisfied about that. He said, "Do not send her any money." I wasn't planning to. I told her Thursday night that you two were obviously not coming and that it did not matter. I closed my eyes. "I know, you told me too." Miles apologized several times. I finally said, "You don't need to apologize for a message you didn't send." Then I added, "But I'm not going to pretend it didn't change how I see her." He went quiet. "I understand." Later that afternoon, Tessa messaged again. This time the tone was different. "I really wish you hadn't sent that to Miles. I was trying to deal with this privately." I stared at the screen for a while before answering. Then I wrote, "He's your husband and my brother. You were charging me for his wedding. He was already involved." She did not respond. For the next 2 weeks, my world got very small. It was feeding schedules, doctors, pumping, sleeping in short pieces, and waiting for the day both babies were strong enough to come home. Miles checked in almost every day. Tessa did not. That hurt more than I expected. Not because I needed her to become my best friend. We had never been especially close. But after that message, every day she stayed silent made the $180 request feel less like a stressed mistake and more like a clear picture of what mattered to her. One evening, Miles came to visit by himself. He brought coffee for Grant and me and stood outside the neonatal unit window for a long time. Then he said, "Tessa says you embarrassed her." I looked at him. "By showing you what she wrote." He nodded slowly. "She knows how that sounds." I said, "Then maybe she's embarrassed by the message, not by me." Miles did not argue. He told me they had fought badly about it. Tessa believed she had been handling wedding expenses responsibly. Miles told her there was a difference between being careful with money and sending a hospital patient an invoice because she missed a party. I almost smiled at the word invoice. But there was nothing funny about how it had felt. If you have ever had a family member make something about money when you were going through a much bigger crisis, tell me in the comments. And subscribe to Real Stories of Women for more stories about sisters, daughters, wives, daughters-in-law, family boundaries, and the moments that reveal what people really value. 6 weeks after the twins were born, both babies were finally home. They were still tiny, we were still exhausted, but for the first time, our house felt like the place we had imagined before everything happened. My father suggested a small family lunch so everyone could meet the babies properly. Grant and I agreed as long as it stayed simple. Miles came early. Tessa arrived with him. She carried a bag with 2 small blankets inside. When she handed them to me, she said, "I wasn't sure what colors you wanted." "They're beautiful," I said. That was the first real conversation we had had since the wedding. Lunch was polite. Tessa helped clear plates. She asked before holding either baby. She did not mention the wedding. I did not mention it either. Near the end of the afternoon, Grant took one of the twins upstairs, and Miles went outside with my father. Tessa and I were alone in the kitchen. She stood beside the sink for a moment and said, "I owe you an apology." I waited. She looked uncomfortable. "I was so focused on the wedding," she said. "Every cancellation felt like money disappearing. I was counting chairs, meals, flowers, everything." I said nothing. Then she looked at me. "And I was counting empty plates while your babies were in the hospital." That was the first thing she had said that made me believe she actually understood. She continued, "When I told you Grant could have come, I wasn't thinking about what I was asking him to leave." I said, "No, you were." Her eyes filled with tears, but I did not rush to make her feel better. "I'm sorry," she said, "really." I accepted the apology. But I also told her the truth. "I can forgive you. I'm not going to pretend the message never happened." She nodded. "I don't expect you to." That mattered. The old version of me might have used her apology as a reason to immediately make everything comfortable again. I did not do that. I stayed civil. I stayed kind. But I stopped pushing for a close sister-in-law relationship just because she had married my brother. For the next few months, Tessa and I saw each other at birthdays and family dinners. Sometimes we talked, sometimes we did not. Miles remained close to us. And slowly, without anyone forcing it, Tessa started making more of an effort. She asked how the twins were doing without turning the conversation back to herself. She remembered their first follow-up appointment. When one of them had a rough night and we canceled a family dinner at the last minute, she texted, "Don't worry about dinner, stay home." I noticed the words immediately. A few weeks later, at Miles's birthday dinner, Tessa brought out a cake and joked that she had finally learned not to count every empty chair. Everyone laughed. I did too. Not because what happened had become harmless. Because enough time had passed, and enough had changed, that I could finally see it as one terrible decision instead of the entire definition of who she was. Before we left that night, Tessa hugged me. Then she said quietly, "I still feel awful when I think about that message." I answered, "Good, it means you learned something." She laughed through the embarrassment. "So did I said. Because I had learned something too. Family does not become close just because a wedding says you are related now. Closeness comes from what people do when life stops being convenient. My brother understood that the moment I called him from the hospital. My husband understood it without needing to be asked. Tessa took longer, but eventually she understood it too. 2 empty wedding meals cost them 1 evening. The message she sent me lasted much longer. And what I remember most now is not the $180. It is the fact that, during one of the scariest weekends of my life, the people who loved me never asked what my absence cost them. They only asked whether my babies were okay.